Okay, so a question I get asked all the time as an artist is, oh my God, Dill, how was it meeting this person? Did you work with that person? What was this person like? Did you get paid to do this? How the hell did you get this opportunity? There's a million and one questions about features and collaborations. So I thought I'd make a video about it. So I've been lucky enough to feature with some really, really cool bands and artists that I've looked up to a very, very long time, including Jamie T, Superorganism, Black Fort, ASAP Rocky, Run the Jewels, Danger Mouse, Russ, and Joey Badass, a whole bunch of people that I used to look up to and still do look up to, and I've had amazing experiences working with. And each one of those collaborations and projects came with a whole host of different circumstances to how they came together, what skill set and what I needed to do to be able to kind of like, work and do the best work possible on those projects and to really try my best to add something to those projects or elevate them or do what was required of me. And it could be challenging because you work in a host of different ways. And so, yeah, it was really, really important for me to be able to address every one of those things individually in its own unique way, case by case, to be able to do my job properly. And so I'm going to go into that now. Me personally, right, I grew up listening to artists like Kid Cudi, Lupe Fiasco, Andre 3000 and Outkast, Gorillaz, a load of really cool people who really thrived in collaboration and also features too. And then for me, I've always viewed it as a really essential part of artistry. I love when artists collaborate and come up with new things. One of my favorite features of all time is Kanye West in Schoolboy Q's That Part. And if you know the song, then you know the song. It's dope. And there's always these unique blend of really, really cool things. For me, one of the coolest projects I got to be a part of was the album Cheat Codes with Danger Mouse and Black Fort. I got to be on two of the songs on that record. One of the songs was called Because, which featured Russ and Joey Badass, and the other song was called Strangers with ASAP Rocky and Run the Jewels. And for me, it was just a super, super cool experience. How this came about, I actually was working in the music industry. I was super, super fresh. I'd gone from working in the bar and pulling pints to working in the music industry and writing songs and being a songwriter, really, and an artist within about 6 months of leaving my bar job. And basically, kind of out of nowhere, I think my manager at the time had sent a demo of mine to like somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who might have went to school with the person who used to be in love with the cousin of who was at the family barbecue of Danger Mouse, somewhere super, super far down the line, and never expecting a kind of mess. It was like a random wild DM out of nowhere. And anyway, I'm in the studio in my friend's house essentially, which was just like super, super low budget studio. We're making songs, just like super early days for me, and I get a call from my manager and he's like, hold the phone, Danger Mouse wants to meet you. He's heard one of your songs. He really, really likes it and he wants to meet you. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I arranged to meet Danger Mouse. He was coming to the UK to meet a few people, do a few business meetings, make some music, presumably. And it asked to meet me because he'd heard this demo that I'd done. And so I went to meet, I'd never been to like many music meetings. Certainly hadn't met any big artists before. I was always a big fan of Danger Mouse. I loved Gnarls Barkley, which was one of the groups that Danger Mouse was in with CeeLo Green. And obviously they did That Make Me Crazy. They did that whole song. And so I was just freaking out. So I met him in this hotel. It was a big fancy hotel. I'd never seen anything like it before. Lobster on the menu. It was crazy, I'd never had anything like that before. Like I said, I was pulling pints 6 months before this. And so we sat down and I was thinking, oh yeah, this guy's cool. We're going to meet. And it was like, I was so starstruck. I didn't know what to do. I sat down and I basically got grilled for like 4 hours. Like, Danger Mouse we spoke and it was really like challenging. We had this conversation where it was just basically, I was getting grilled for like 4 hours, which kind of like low-key was kind of refreshing because I feel like it just cut through the BS. It was like, right, who are you? What do you want? What are you doing? And it was almost like I felt like I was getting checked as an artist a little bit. I felt like it was a bit like, okay, right, this kid, he does this, he makes these songs. What's he made of? I left the conversation not really knowing if he was really into me or it went well or whatever. And then I remember I ended up just going back and walking out. My manager being a bit like, oh, I don't know if that's, this guy's very cool, man. I don't know if he's into you, I don't know if I got a great vibe. So anyway, I went back home and a couple of weeks later, my manager says, well, it must have gone well because he was really, really into it and he wants to fly you out to New York to work at Electric Lady Studios. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, Electric Lady Studios are a famous music studio in America. It's kind of like the Abbey Road of America. Some of the greatest people have recorded there. Jimi Hendrix, D'Angelo, Led Zeppelin, anybody you can think of has kind of recorded out or been a part of Electric Lady. It's an iconic music studio. I got to meet some of my heroes. I met Julian Casablancas from The Strokes. ASAP Rocky and Tyler the Creator were in the studio downstairs. Doing their thing. I was upstairs with Danger Mouse working in one of the rooms there, which was Dan Albeck's room, I think, at the time. I think he had a sort of residency in there. And I love the Black Keys. So we had all this really, really cool gear, really, really cool setup. And it was just ideal. It was literally like, I felt like I was going to get airlifted to the toilets in case I got an idea on the way. You know, it was prestige. One of the world's best mixing engineers and somebody I personally massively look up to. Tom Elmhurst was there. And he is a totally dope mixed engineer. I worked with a really cool guy called Dan Parry who went and trained there. He's kind of like a Jedi amongst the mixing world. He's super, super cool. Anyway, I went there. I started rapping over a bunch of beats. I started writing a bunch of music, playing a load of bass lines. I just did a load of stuff. I had the best week. I got to spend a week with one of my heroes, making music. It was very, very surreal. It was an unbelievable experience. Off the back of it, I didn't quite know what was going to happen. I just recorded all this stuff. I had an amazing time. And then that was kind of it. We made the music. I flew back home. We kept in touch. And Danger Mouse was just kind of really, really cool. He kind of low-key helped me to put together my first record. He gave me loads of really cool insights. It was super, super helpful. One of the most generous, cool, and kind people I've ever met. And it was such a dope experience. And I remember coming back just feeling like, oh my God, this is amazing. I've learned so much. Like, I remember for years and years and years when I was just writing raps, I used to just like, obviously start with the jibber jabber and then make lyrics from the jibber jabber. And I would spend hours, I mean, hours and hours and hours and hours making lyrics out of jibber jabber that I've been freestyling. And Danger Mouse basically had been like, oh my God, this is really cool. It's cool that you do this. I do something similar. This is something that you can do to take it to the next level. And he was just filled with the really coolest insights that you can imagine. And it was just like a total masterclass in being an artist and a musician. And it helped me immensely. Even getting to listen to some of the early demos and some of, scratch freestyles from like Q-Tip, ASAP Rocky. It was just crazy. And just an experience that I'll never forget. And I came back from it just full of hunger and energy, ready to go. But then, one of the things that people don't realize about features and collaborations is that sometimes, people kind of do stuff and then you kind of never hear back from it. Or you just record some parts and then that's it. And you might be the first that you hear about it for a long time. And that was the case with this one. So the stuff that I went out to record for the week, I didn't hear anything about it or if it was even going to be used or whatever for like 5 years. And then I just get a phone call out the blue 5 years later saying, okay, Dill, I'm putting a record together with Black Forts. We've got a couple of songs. Here's the artist that are going to be on it. We're going to use your hook on one of the songs. I love one of the vocals you've done. We're going to use it as a chorus in this song. And then we're going to use one of your scratch vocals as a sample in another song. And we're also going to use one of your bass lines that you played. So I was like, oh my God. And I was like, okay, what are the tracks? And he sent them through. It was like, yeah, by the way, ASAP Rocky and Run the Jewels are on this track. And Russ and Joey Badass and Black Fort are on this track. And I was just like, oh my God, this is crazy. I was freaking out. And a lot of people didn't realize is that when I recorded those parts, it was just with me and Danger Mouse in the room alone. A lot of people recorded their parts remotely because they're all over the world with crazy schedules. And 5 years later, I found out it was even being used. I had no idea if it was just on a hard drive somewhere, if it was ever going to be used. And that is one of the things that a lot of people don't really know about features or collaborations, I think, is that or it's something that maybe you didn't know, is that a lot of the time the collaborations happen on the fly or people take bits and bobs. Like some of the best, I've heard some amazing collaborations that are on hard drives from dope artists that I respect that you've never heard before because, it never saw the light of day or it wasn't quite right or there's just a load of cool parts that are around not really knowing where they fit in the puzzle yet, which is crazy. One of the things that was super interesting from my perspective as an artist on this project is that the parts that are recorded were in totally different contexts. A lot of them didn't really have fully formed lyrics or ideas. And it was so interesting to see. It was like super hip hop in a way. And I'm a massive hip hop fan. I've been a massive hip hop fan my whole life. Rapping was the very first thing I started doing before I started writing songs and singing and playing instruments and producing. One of the things I've always been super fascinated with about hip hop is how its ability to innovate and create new ideas out of nothing, to be able to sample, take things in one context, apply them in another, and for it to be completely transformed into something crazy, beautiful, or, flip something on its head, essentially. So that's really what happened. A lot of the parts that I did record were in totally different contexts for totally different things. I think I was just messing around. I just had a beat on it and I was going, it's hard to find your love, gotta fight it off. Like just doing this kind of thing. And then they ended up, Danger Mouse and Black Fort ended up finding this other sample of an old soul singer and kind of chopping it up so it went like, because. And then it had me coming in after being like, it's hard to find your love, gotta fight it off. And like those two separate elements, which was like me randomly singing this this idea I had no idea what it was. Like one day in the studio in New York, and a singer from like the 60s or whatever spliced together to make a chorus for one of the dopest rappers of all time. What? Crazy. I think genre is super, super important when it comes to features and collaborations, because different artists, depending on what their roles are, like, bass players or, singers or rappers, depending on what context they're applied or what the collaboration is, and which angle they're coming at it from, it's kind of a totally different approach. So I'm somebody that's done a range of different things. So, like, for example, the hookups that I was doing on the rap stuff, there was one where I dropped a 16-bar rap on a song by a really super, super cool band called Superorganism, who I'm a massive fan of, and they asked me to rap on one of their songs, and it was like this kooky kind of sampley, kind of quirky bedroom poppy style song, and it had Stephen Malcolmus, who's a really, really cool artist, on there too, and I approached that totally differently. So I was writing a rap on that. It wasn't something that was taken out of context. I knew that I was, this was a feature that I was going to be doing, and this is the what I was going to be recording. And so I ended up writing this rap that was kind of like, had all these anime references, because there was just something that I heard in the song that had this, like, alluded to the fact that somebody kind of loved Japanese culture, or had an understanding of some of that weeby type stuff. So I ended up putting this kind of rap in there, and kind of just dropping this really cool rap in there that added this context to the song. And I felt at that point where my job was just to kind of flower it a little bit, or just add a little bit of flair, which was super, super interesting. And that was a song that was going on an album that I knew kind of rough idea of when it was going to be released. I kind of knew like how long it was going to take. And so that was a completely, the 180 of some other experiences I've had where, 5 years later it pops up out of nowhere. You can have it on the other foot too, where you as an artist or as a band or a creative or whatever, ask people to feature in collaboration on your own work, as opposed to being asked to feature and collaborate on somebody else's work. One of these examples is, so early on in my career, I got the really, really super dope opportunity to work with an artist who I love called Jamie T. For context, I basically grew up drinking in parks at like 13 years old, screaming out Jamie T songs, which was absolutely crazy. Being rascals in the park, absolutely blaring out Jamie T songs and having the time of our lives. And it was absolutely unbelievable. And I had no idea that maybe 10 years later from that moment of like drinking in the park, singing Jamie T's songs, that I would actually be in a room with him, making music with him as a professional. It was absolutely trippy and crazy. He wasn't even meant to feature. We were just writing together. We were writing a song, and he was producing and writing a song with me. It was for my record. And while we were doing it, there was just this section. I tried these couple of verses and it wasn't working. The track was called Up and Upside Down. And I said, yo, Jay, you want to jump on this? And he was like, I don't know, man. I don't know the rap. I said, you should give it a go, man. If we don't like it, we'll delete it. And anyway, Jamie ended up laying this rap down, and it was super, super, super cool. It was super cool, super fresh. And actually, that one came about because I was working with a producer and friend of mine called James Dring. We were working on songs together. He'd done some songs on my first record. And we've been working together for a while. And actually, James is really, really good friends with Jamie. And I want to say James has produced and wrote on, I want to say 5 of Jamie T's 6 albums, or 4 of Jamie T's 5 albums, which one it is. And we were just working together one day, and Jamie just pulled up to the studio. He just pulled up to the studio and said, yo, can I come through? And he came through. And sometimes it can just happen like that. It's kind of crazy, is when you kind of start working in the industry, and when you start you working with people, you're doing dope stuff, you're making songs, all of a sudden things can just fall into your lap, which seems crazy. Not every collaboration and feature works out. There's been times where I've reached out to people to work, people have reached out to me, it hasn't been the right fit or whatever, or it just hasn't worked. There's been loads of different things like that. One time I even got asked to come and play bass on the big blockbuster movie. I signed a non-disclosure agreement and everything like that. I heard about, what the project was going to be, who were the big movie stars that were going to be in it, and all this kind of stuff. And nothing ever came of it. I'd signed this non-disclosure, I got myself really excited, and it just kind of fizzled out. For whatever reason, it didn't happen, but that's kind of how it goes when you are working in the music industry, which is crazy. So not all of the features and collaboration work out. Often some of the best features and collaborations are stuff that, for whatever reason gets lost in kind of like, collaboration limbo. Artists, companies, whoever it might be, bands, creatives in general, always are changing their minds. It's an ever-changing landscape, and one minute something's a done deal, and then the next it's gone bust and everything's not happening anymore. So with features and collaborations, that works in a way where some, you know, you might wake up one day and be like, oh my God, this is so sick and I want this, to the next where, oh, that's just isn't, sorry, that isn't going to work. And so it is very ebbs and flows, and you can't really bank on features and collaborations. For me, I see them as very much as like being side quests, you know? They're cool when they come along, I'm doing my main storyline, but all of a sudden you might get this crazy side quest that comes out of nowhere, and an NPC arrives with a scroll asking you to fly to a castle on the other side of the map. That's what I find so fun and so exciting about them. Things that people always want to know is like, oh my God, how much do you get paid for this? How much do you get paid for that? Now that can vary massively. I only speak from my own experiences, and it's obviously a case by case basis. So sometimes artists, particularly artists, it depends on the nature of your relationship with that artist, but sometimes it may like swap a feature for a feature. You know, you hear these stories of like Drake and Kendrick and all these people like, you know, 150K feature fee, this, that, and the other. But I actually think a lot of people who like obviously have good relationships with people, they're much more like, listen, I'll swap you a verse for a verse. So you do this on my album, I'll do this on your album, this, that, and the other. There's been times where it's been like that. There's been times where I've just paid straight fees. It can be from like swapping for free to like thousands. You know what I mean? Like it totally does depend on the project. What your relationship is to them is a massive, massive part of it, and how that's all going to work together. Sometimes you get curveballs out of nowhere and you get asked to be a part of projects that you never imagined that you'll be asked to be a part of. One of those projects for me, it wasn't a musical project, but I was asked to be a part of a Beta Squad video. And it's probably the question that I get asked the most about. People ask me all the time about what it was like to be in the Beta Squad. Did you meet them? What the crack is? And pretty much anybody who knows me or doesn't know me that's under the age of like 21, it's like Beta Squad, Beta Squad, Beta Squad. It's kind of a crazy one because I'll be real, I didn't actually know who the Beta Squad were, or I hadn't heard of the Beta Squad before being asked to do it. I'd heard of the Sidemen and I followed YouTube kind of a long time ago, a bit Unc-energy, but I wasn't really down with it. I didn't know exactly what was going on right now in terms of online content and communities and stuff like that, outside of my own little musical bubble really. And so when I looked into it, I was like, oh my God, this is actually really cool. They did this like guest a singer, guest a footballer, and it was all really, really cool. So I was like, oh yeah, this is a really dope thing. And they basically asked me to be an undercover musician in the guest a musician video. And I was going to be in a lineup with 3 or 4 other people. And we were going to basically be on a panel where it was going to be a bit of like an entertainment kind of, meme type content where the Beta Squad were going to have to figure out who was the undercover musician, which was a really, really cool format. And I just thought, this is really, really dope. And it was massive. Like lots of people watched it. And so I thought, this is going to be an interesting thing. Why not? It's a bit of fun. I haven't done anything like this before. What have I got to lose? It was a totally different type of experience. I was used to, obviously going to studios, going to music studios, music videos, all this kind of stuff. But this was a completely different game. It was really, really cool. But it was very much like I imagine what it's like to be in a reality TV show or a game show or something like that. It was very clear that obviously it was set up to be like, it was entertainment. It was like a production, in that way. It was just really cool. I got to hang backstage, meet a few of the people, talk about it. The Beta Squad, I'm pretty sure when I got asked to do it, it was like the day before I actually was going to go. And they were like, right, can you be on this shoot in London tomorrow? And they just basically said, listen, we'll cover your train ticket, this, that, and the other. Can you come down? And so I said, okay, fair enough, I'll do it. It's like, this is the vibe. It's going to be based on this. It's going to be Dave who's going to be featuring. So I was like, cool, let's go do it. And so it was like a totally different production. I got to chill backstage with all the different kind of contestants who were going to be in it. So we were kept completely separate from obviously Dave and the Beta Squad, because obviously they were going to be seeing us for the first time, which to be fair, I rated that because it felt authentic. It didn't feel like it was like totally unbelievably scripted or pre-rehearsed or anything like that. The few little things where I was just like, okay, where there was quite few clear little things where it was like the production team were like changing things or kind of setting you up a little bit to just meme on you or make it a bit more entertaining. But to be fair, like that's the name of the game. Like I was sort of pushed more towards playing keys than playing bass because bass really was my thing. So I kind of learned this whole Dave location thing on the keys, this, that, and the other. But then basically they just said, scrap that, just make something up on the spot. And so I just wrote this song. I still wasn't sure how to play it. I was really nervous. And so I played Crazy World on the keys, which kind of was a bit of a meme. Didn't really want me to play the bass. But then I basically said, well, if you don't want to let me play the bass, or you want to kind of make me play something I don't want to play, then that's cool, like that's fine. And then to be fair, Dave was like, well, let the guy play the bass, come on, let the brother play the bass. So that's when I got to play the bass and play my song Cheerleader. I got voted out in the first round. I was quite shocked at first. I was like, oh no, but I've been voted out in the first round, no way. But I think, to be honest, as it went on a little bit more, it was really, really abundant that obviously, speaking from the contestants afterwards, it was just more about clips, and it, obviously it wasn't necessarily there to showcase your talent so much. It was there to obviously clip you up to make it an entertaining video, which obviously is the name of the game. That's what you are doing in that video. But massive respect to obviously the Beta Squad, Dave. They were really, really cool folks. I got to speak with them after, and it was just a really, really cool thing. It just wasn't that deep. It was just cool content, bit of fun, and I had a really, really great time, and it was a really dope experience to be a part of. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so, so, so much. I really, really appreciate it. This was just some of my experiences when it comes to collaborations and features and some of the things that people ask me about sometimes. It's been a really, really cool pleasure making this video for you. I've really, really enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments below about some of the collaborations and features that happen at the minute. What are some of your favorites? Have you been a part of anything like that? Where do you think the future of them is heading? Who knows? But it's been an absolute pleasure. Take care and have a sick one, G's. Peace.